So this is Baruch Fleischman at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. Let me see if I can get this thing lined up a little bit better. I'm looking for drawings and I don't have any that I could just pull out of the head, so I made a real quick little drawing to try to give us an idea of the layering that we're going to be dealing with in the Zohar for today, which is the first day of the week of Parshas Toldot. So if you look at this, is a series of cylinders. It gives an idea of orientation. I've been looking for the last 45 minutes for a drawing that I know is one of my books. It's just much nicer put together. It's a very simple idea. The center of reality is coming down into a parts of which is called Erich Anpin. Everything, all other partsufim surround Erich Anpin. Now, in drawings that I've shown you before, you have to understand there's an Erich Anpin in every partsuf. There are 10 spheros in every partsuf, and every sphera has 10 spheros. You could go on like this, but the basic idea is that behind them, underneath them all, is a light that is flowing from Erich Anpin, from the very top of wherever where Erich Anpin begins, down to the Kark of Atzilus, to the very ending of Atzilus. It covers the entire Atzilus, and another word, often I've seen that Kabbalists refer to Erich Anpin as Atzilus. Now, Erich Anpin, though, is then in turn clothed with, here we are, with Abba and Ima. Excuse my differentiation. Abba ve'Ima Eloyin. Cover over approximately from the shoulders Zair Anpin, and then there's discussion about exactly where they go after that, but most feel, at least I feel that I understand, that they actually go down to the bottom, but we don't deal with the entire cylinder of Abba ve'Ima because there is a sub-cylinder to Abba ve'Ima called Yisrael Saba and Tavuna, and you see that right here. Right? Excuse me for the writing, but that's what you get when you're dealing with me. Now that in turn, so therefore Yisrael Saba Tavuna surrounds Abba ve'Ima Eloyin, and Erich Anpin, and they surround Erich Anpin. Now all of these partsufim surround Erich Anpin, and the final partsuf in the general category of Atzilus is Zohar Toldot, right? That's Zair Anpin and Malchus. They cover over the lower section for the Lamata of Erich Anpin. So here you have Erich Anpin. The Rosh of Erich Anpin is what they call Megula. We don't really understand the Rosh of Erich Anpin, and that's part of our Zohar that we're going to learn today, is that it's extremely hidden. And why is it hidden? Because the lower partsufim can't see it, they don't touch it, they're not involved with it. It has to go down into the lower level of, close to the body of Erich Anpin, until you start getting Yisrael Saba Tavuna, Abba ve'Ima Eloyin, and Yisrael Saba Tavuna, and Zohar Toldot surrounding that, and you see all the layering that is going on with Zair Anpin. Now, if you give me a minute, I'm going to move this aside and bring over our little Zohar. So we're always talking in the Zohar about one of the things that we talk about that we're most interested in is the concept of this layering that we're talking about and the transfer of light through the partsuf. Because what it is with partsufim, what are partsufim? So partsufim are systems of light transfer from a place where the light is almost non-existent because the Ein Sof Baruch Hu is not, what could you say, is nothing. So the question is as it passes through the partsufim, it gets more and more thick. And as a result of that, ultimately behind us and underneath us, I don't know what the right word is, there are other partsufim that are feeding into a final physical congealed form called this earth. So let's go over here and take a look. Let me see if I can move this around a little bit better for myself so I could see it better. And the Zohar starts like this. Rebbe Shimon Pasuk V'Omar. We got a little bit of depth here. He said, the Farash Masha Kosev, here's a pasuk, which is actually, those of you who have been zeicha to hear to listen to the series on the Yidra Rabbah actually talked about in detail over there. This particular pasuk, which says Chachmas b'chutz Torona. So he says that this is the pasuk translated that Chachmos, in plural, b'chutz outside, they will sing and dance, they will celebrate. So in the broad space, they will raise their voices, or they will sing out. Now the truth is that this pasuk really represents a tremendously high secret. The pasuk zeh yesh sod elyon, v'shol my chachmas. And what does it mean? My heim chachmas. What chachmas are we talking about? Ilan chachma ilah v'chachma. He calls it chachma ilah v'chachmasa ze'era. So he said elu heim chachma elyonim. Al-Yoina, excuse me, the upper Chachma. What Chachma is that? That's Erich Anpin, who has 10 spheros. The Chachma of the Zair, and also Zair Anpin, who has 10 spheros. One of them is Chachma. Bis Kalilas ba be'ilah. So what we're talking about here, Shechal Chachma de Zair Anpin, Nechlelas b'Chachma El-Yona de Erich Anpin, where the two Chachmas come together. Ki he tefela alechu, because obviously it's subservient to it. It's less. It's dependent on this light of Erich Anpin. B'shar yabo kolomba v'rachachma el yoina. So what happens is, and there in the Idra Rabbah is a complete detail of exactly how it is that the connection is made. Is a v'chachma el yoina from Zera Erich Anpin meira v'shora b'tachtonim. It shines and it dwells in the tachtonim. In other words, in Zera Anpin. Masha calls it b'chutz terona. So why is it right outside? They will sing outside. Kedei lefarsho, in order to explain this we have to makdim v'arma. We have to have a little preface here. Say like this: Tochazi, come and sing. Chachmei lo ichu stimid the kol stimid. Boi rei chachma ad yoina. The upper chachma, there's the Chachma of Erich Anpin, who mochas tima. It has another name. It's called the mochas tima in Erich Anpin. And the reason why it's called that is because it's unreachable, untouchable, ununderstandable, but it is the source. We do know that we could label it as the source of a certain type of the energy that's going to come down into the lower world. It's called the Mukhas Dima Shal Erich Anpin. Shuhu Sasam, a Beluvish Bakol Partsufi Atzilas. That's actually, now listen to this. It's just like I showed you in that picture. Let me show it again too. It says that Erich Anpin itself is really malubish, that is clothed inside of all of these other, you can't see it, all of these other partsufim. Erich Anpin is inside. Now, in particular, if we wanted to look at the parts of Erich Anpin, then we would see that it has all of these other qualities as well, and one of them is Chachma. Kama de at armor, like you say, like this. Let me see if I got it right. It's closed up, more closed than anything else. He is called the muchastima, the closed up mocha brain of Erich Anpin. This is where we're at, which is closed up inside of all of the partsufim of Atzilus. And we're talking about this chachma aspect. So nobody knows where it is. It is unreachable. It's not revealed. You say like this, so where do you find this chachma? Lo yada enish arka. He says, there's no way to reach it or to form an idea about what it is. So if it's hidden inside of this place, inside of the skull, actually, of Erich Anpin, and it's so completely hidden in there, where do we get this idea that Chachmas, which is the Chachma of this, which, incidentally, the Mochas Dima is the Chachma of Erich Anpin. He says that the Chachma b'chutz terona, where do we get the idea that it's going to get out and it's going to start singing and dancing? So how can we understand this, to hear this? So how to get out? So he said, so how does the voice get out? But is pashta is nara, but when the actual fact is that reality pours out of the muchstima, of this Chachma of Erich Anpin. Chachma de Erich Anpin mispashes lahoyer. So it actually does mispashetis. It extends its out and forms itself out, going outwards. Is nara baraza the alma the asi. And so what happens? How is the process by which that this light begins to transfer? He said, Me'ira le'ima, it shines into Bina. This is Chachma and Bina, they come together, right? Chachma shines into Bina. It's very similar to that little drawing that I made, the drawing that we copied and we made. We want to say, well, how the Yud goes along with the K and so on and so forth. Shehi sod olam haba. that because Bina is the concept of the world beyond, the world after the grave, the Memena Mekabelas Kol Chiyusa, and from her, all the Chiyus comes from her. Ba'alma the Asi Isbri Minei. Now I think that, let me read it again. I think I have this wrong. So he says that the light of the Chachma of Erich Anpin is pashatless nahara, because Chachma the Erich Anpin is pashetis lahachir. It goes out to shine. Is nahara baraza the alma the asa. It shines into where? Into the secret of the next world, of the world beyond the grave. What is that? Meir the ima. This shines into ima law. This is called bina. Sod olam haba memena mekabelas kol chiyusa. And from him, or from that Chachma, all of her life force comes into Bina. Ba'alma the Asa is Berimine, and as a result of that, the Od Shakal Atzmos Bina, said all of the essence of Bina, the whole parts of Bina, Nivra Mechachma the Erich Anpin, is created from the Chachma of Erich Anpin. But it none, so we learn like this. Alma the Asi, the next world, the world beyond the grave, Ispere B'Yud, is created by that letter Yud. Kamosha Lamando, like we learn like this, She'ima Nivra, that Ima, that is Bina, is created by Os Yud, by the letter Yud. So he said, HaChachma the Erich Anpin, which is the Chachma of Erich Anpin. Vizkasya of Chachma Taman. And so what happens is like this. Miskasa Zuha Chachma Shom. So the Chachma is hidden inside of this Bina. Now let's go back deeper. There is a parts of that is Panimi to Erich Anpin. Now we see this all the time. Every day in the Idra, we go through this particular word, but it refers to a parts of that we know very little about, but it's Panimi to Erich Anpin. Now we have this drawing. Let's get back over here. Look at our drawing of Erich Anpin, right? Well, it turns out that there's something Panimi to Erich Anpin as well. So what is that called? That's called Atek Yomim. But we don't really know what that much about. That is, the Rav doesn't bring us, the Reb Shimon doesn't bring us. This is mostly unnotable. So what parts of this Atek Yomim do we actually know? We know about its lower spheros, its Zat. So the different spheros of this tail. Let me write it a little bit differently. Let's just imagine here that we have another cylinder, which is called Atek Yomim. We'll just put an ayin and then a yud. That this is Atek Yomim. And let me see if I write it again. Goes inside of Zair Anpin. But Atek Yomim actually has another part. These are the 7 spheros tachtonos. Right? Which is Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus go into Erich Anpin, into the top of the head of Erich Anpin. But the actual head of Atek Yomim is not known. So what do we know is the manifestation of the Zat inside of Erich Anpin, that we know something, we know where it is. And we know something about its qualities because it has names like Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus. But this part is called the Reisha Delo Isyada. It's the unknowable head. So this gives you an idea of just the flow of energy, how it's coming into Erich Anpin. So let's go back. So he said, so now we're talking about the Chachma of Erich Anpin, the Much Stimor. So he wants to say like this. So we want to say like this. Atek Yomim, one of the 7 lower spheros is Gevurah. That Gevurah is inside, underneath, I'm not sure exactly how it is, shining onto the Much Stimor of Zair Anpin, the Erich Anpin rather. Nimshechas, and that flow that's coming from the Gevurah of Atek into the Much Stimor of Erich Anpin, and it comes in and it becomes clothed in there, hidden inside of it, like a spark that is of tremendous might, that is shining into this Chachma of Erich Anpin, which is now inside of Bina. So he's a V'inun chad. And as a result of all of this energy, again, the trail coming from the Gevura of Erich Anpin into the Mur Stima of, let me say it again, the Gevura of Atek Yomim into the Mur Stima of Erich Anpin now is coming together into Bina, and they become one. V'hem na'asas b'china achas, they become one b'china. He says, Ki Gevura the Atek na'asas etzim ma'atzmu, so he becomes actually, that we see the upper as it goes into the lower, actually joins into the lower and becomes like one with it. V'amar, and he says like this, Ki bizimna de is atad kula baraza the alba the ase kada amram. So now the translators in the matok, bizman mizumanes v'nechlalos kol hagevuras the muach stimocha be'ima. So let's say the Gvur Stima, the Muach Stima is called Chachma, right? It's the Chachma of Abba. We're talking about the Chachmas B'chutz Torona. So we're saying like the Kol HaGevuros, the Muach Stima, the Be'ima, that they all are now those Gevuros, which, let me trace it again. It is Atek Yomin, that unknowable parts of, it has a Gevura which is inside of the Muach Stima. Now, what's inside the Mochas Timor, which is the Chachma of Erich Anpin, is now going into the Bina of Zair Anpin, of Erich Anpin. We'll get these words mixed up, I'm sorry. Now they're all in there. Geden, who Chedva is Nara. When he enters into her, Oz Yesh Simcha Lahoyer, there is a tremendous amount of joy just to shine. Ritzon Lobasha Oz Ima Misareres, then she becomes aroused. The hisyachid in Abba, to make a yichud in Abba, v'kula b'chashoy, but all of it is done in a whisper. Because remember that Chachma is, this Chachma is hidden, it's sasum, it's closed up, and we don't know what it is. We know something about it, we don't know where it is, how it is, but we know that it's inside of Ima. And we know that inside of this Chachma is this Gevura of Atik. And all of this energy is now in Ima. It causes her to become aroused. But still, we don't see Ima in a situation where she is going to sing out loud. So again, the train is all on the inside. The train is all on the inside. What's the train? The head of the train is the Gevura of Atek Yamim, which is lodged inside and Pnimi underneath, shining into the Muach Stima of Erich Anpin. The Muach Stima in Erich Anpin then also is shining into the Bina. It's shining into the Bina of Erich Anpin. And as a result of that, you're creating a yichud between what we call the Abba ve'ima Eloyan, that is Abba, which is Chachma, and Bina, which is Ima Eloyan, the upper partsuf of Abba ve'ima Eloyan. And as a result of that, then we have a yichud that takes place of them, but it's chashoy, it's quiet, nobody knows it's there. Now, there's a continuation to this shiur, but I think this is enough for this particular shiur. Kol Tuv, this is Baruch Fleischman.